Alright, let's go on to part 2, which is making the cat. So the graphic I referred you to in the part 1 for the cat, you should have downloaded that, and so you can now bring that into your software. I'm just going to zoom out. It's going to be way too big, don't panic. So I'm just going to come up here to my load artwork and navigate to where my cat is, and I have done it before, so it's come up with the right window, but you would navigate to wherever you've saved your image and select it and open it. And as you can see, yes, it is way too big. Now the first thing I'm going to do is crop this image so that I only have the cat I want, which I chose this one. You could choose any one you like, but I liked this one. So I'm going to go to the Auto Digitize tab in the toolbar boxes and expand that out, and you'll find a crop background. So click on that, and above the toolboxes you will get all your options of your different shapes, and I'm going to choose the first one, which is any shape, so you actually digitize the shape you want to crop out. So I'm going to left click on that, and I'm just going to left click roughly around this cat. Now when I get down to here, I actually want the whiskers, so I'm not worried that I'm going to accidentally get part of the other cat next to it, but I just wanted to get those whiskers in. So I'm just coming around and down around the paw, and of course you don't have to close the object. When you hit enter, it will close and cut off the object. Now in the Bernina software, in the embroidery canvas, when you crop an object, the whole object is still there. So your selection handles are out in the middle of nowhere because it doesn't actually resize the image. It's still selecting the whole image. But you can use those handles just the same. So we need to get this down small enough to fit in the pumpkin. So I'm going to just left click on that corner node and shrink that right down. I can see the outline of it here, so I know roughly how big. Then I'm going to drag it across here and zoom into there. Could go just a little bit more. So that's a middle handle. So the other handle is off my screen here because I'm zoomed in so far. So I'll use this one on this side this time that I can see, and take it down a little bit more and just bring it down. What I want is the paw. Well, that's about right actually now, but I want the paw to be over the top of this part of the pumpkin, this front edge of the hole in the pumpkin. And I also want to rotate the cat slightly so that the paw is facing in this way and the face is on a bit more of an angle. So to rotate, you just left click on the image again. Your handles will become clear, just outlines, and when you hover over them you'll get an arrow, and so I can turn that now, and when I release my mouse it'll be slightly rotated. So then I can left click on it again to get the selection handle solid again, and then I can move it till I'm happy. I know it's underneath, so you have to imagine it being on top. That's about right there. Oh, no, I'm too low because I'm cutting through the eye with this part of the pumpkin. And this, you may want to reshape this front edge of the pumpkin to get a better look, which I think I will have to do. I'll just go up a little bit higher. No, I want to come down a little bit lower because I really want that paw over the top. So I will actually reshape this front edge of the pumpkin later once I've digitized the cat and I get that sitting where I want it. So that's about the right angle, I think. And my paw's coming over the front edge, and I am now going to click off so the image is no longer selected. Now I need to be able to see to digitize it, so what I'm going to do is select all the embroidery objects and hide them for the time being. So I'll select, and I'll lock them as well so they don't move. So I'll select the first one, hold my shift key down and select the last one, and right click and lock. I don't know if I have to look, if I can hide after I've locked, we'll see. And then I'll right click again and I can hide, yes. So they're both locked and hidden. So I can't do any damage to them whatsoever, and they're out of the way, so I can digitize the cat. Now I'll just hover over the middle of the cat here and zoom in, and I'll get it nice and big on the screen. I'm a little bit too low. Well, let's move it up a bit. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to digitize is the tail, so I will need to bring it down actually. I'll select it and bring it down. Oh, I didn't want to move it. I'll undo that. I just want to use my zoom tools because it's sitting where I need it for the pumpkin, so I'll try not to move it. In fact, I'll lock that image as well. I'll right click on it and lock it, and that way the image won't move. Okay, so now I can use my panning tools. I could use my panning hand and just pan to the tail. So that's this little icon up here, the pan, or you can hit P on your keyboard and you'll get the panning hand. And now I want to get out of that again, so I just click on it again and I'm released from it. And I'll digitize the tail. Now, you could digitize it just by digitizing around the outside edges. It's not exactly the same width all the way around, and a little bit of variation adds a bit more interest. So you could just digitize by clicking around the outside edges, as I said, or you could use the block digitizing tool. So I'll just show you the block digitizing tool for the first part for a little while, and then I'll stop. And then I'll show you how to digitize it and add stitch angles, and you can decide which method you prefer. So we go to our digitizing toolbox and we get our block digitizing tool. The reason I'm choosing this one is because it's going to add the stitch angles in for me as I go, but sometimes it's a bit tricky to get around the shapes, so I'm just going to come down here, and I've got black chosen, so I want a black cat, so that's good. And I've got the block, and I want a step fill. You could do this in satin, but it's just a little bit wide, so I chose to do it in a step fill, and the rest of the cat's done in a step fill too, so it blends in nicely. Now to do that, I'm actually going to zoom in even further. To do the block digitizing tool, you make blocks or little boxes in the shape that you want the angle. So because this is a curved shape, I'm going to use right clicks. If it was a straight line shape, I would use left clicks, but we're going to right click here and right click on the other side, and it's only narrow here because it comes to a kind of rounded end. So if you had a point, you'd put them very close together. But I'm going to right click on this side, and now I'm going to follow that curve. Now I want my angles going sort of like when you think about going around a clock. You want the angles going across the tail in the shortest possible distance across, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to go a little bit further up because I want to create this curved end, and I'm going to right click there, and you can see now you need to close off your box. You've got two strings coming off your cursor, so I'm going to watch that top string is creating the angle, the bottom string is creating the curve for the edge. So I'm going to click here with a right click, and now I can start my next box. So I'll click here and get my angle correct and right click again. Now you don't have to worry if you're not exactly perfect, but try and get your curves as nice as you can get them, but concentrate on those angles. So now I'm starting to come a little bit narrow across here because I want the angle to come down this way, not straight up and down. So I'm going to right click about there, and then I'm going to right click here and come across the shortest distance and right click, and then here and right click, and as you can see I'm turning with the curve. So the distance here is shorter than there to create this line here at the right angle. So now I want to come almost horizontal across, and so on. And I'll pause the video and I will come back when I've gone right round the tail and got to the other end. Okay, so I did my last 2 clicks, one here and one here, and hit enter on my keyboard, and that created the stitches. So there's my lovely tail with all the stitch angles radiating around. Now you can reshape this and move those angles. So if I select it, why didn't my mouth get locked? I'll just go to individual objects. Somehow, oh no, it is locked. Okay, so I'll click off and I'll just select the tail. I can go to my reshape tool and all those angles will show. So you can actually move those. So down here, I didn't start to turn fast enough, I don't think. So I'm going to grab this angle here and just move that down a little bit, and this one a little bit, just to make this a bit smoother. Because the more you turn, you start to get little bits of gaps on this side, and it's more dense on this side. So I'm just trying to, they won't move anymore, so that must be as much as I can do it, but just try and get a nice even flow of your angles. So that's how you do it with the block digitizing tool. I'll select that and delete it and just do it with the add stitch angles tool. So you would just get a closed object for that, and you can see I'm digitizing just inside that head, so that I will be covered by the head, the end will be covered by the head. So again, I did a left click to start with, but this is a curve, so right clicks all the way around. So this seems quicker, but you've then got to go in and put all your stitch angles, because if you don't, if you just right click all the way around, you will get a default 45-degree angle of the stitches, which is nowhere near as attractive in a shape like this. So right round both sides, keep going in one continuous line. And I'm going to left click there, right click in the middle of the tail and enter. And that's given me the shape, but as you can see, it's all 45-degree angle stitching. So to add the stitch angles, just select the tail, come to your edit tool box, and you'll see an add stitch angles. So left click on that, and then you basically put your angles in by left clicking on either side of the object. Now if you were doing this in an object that had already been created and had more than the default stitch angle in it, you may not be able to get a good look with this without removing the stitch angles. So if you're doing another design and you find that you can't get it to work, it's because you've got too many pre-existing angles. So usually the remove stitch angles option is available when you need to do it. So it's greyed out on mine at the moment because I only had the default angle, so I didn't need to remove the stitch angles. But if it's available, then it's usually a good idea to do it. See, I might still need to edit these, but I've got all my angles in that I think, so I hit enter on my keyboard and that changes it to the same sort of look as using the block digitizing tool. But again, I might just want to tweak these angles if I got a little bit too sharp in the angle there. Now that's a little bit too far. You've really got to tweak it a little bit sometimes. That's better. So you can see that you've got a nice even fill around. The rest looks pretty good. So 2 ways to get that look. Alright, now the face. Well, let's do the ears first. They're just little triangles. So that's, I'll get my select tool, click off so nothing's selected, go to my digitize toolbox and just get a closed object. I've still got step fill selected and the color black, so I just need to left click on here, here and here, just inside the head, and I'll put a right click there to curve around under the head and enter. And there's my one of my ears. I'll do the other ear the same. Enter. There's my other ear. Now here too you might want to have your angles changing, so you might want to select your second ear and reshape it and turn your angle that way so that the angles are going in opposite directions on the ears. That always looks a little bit better. Okay, now for the face. So again, we're just using our standard step fill with its underlay and the standard settings, and we're going to create an ellipse to cover the whole face. So we'll go to our digitizing tools and click on ellipse, and we want to click somewhere in the middle of this ellipse, and then we'll go out to the width of it. You might not be strictly accurate when you first start, but that's close enough for now. And you can see that I'm coming up at an angle so that I'm horizontal to the, if I drew an imaginary line through the ellipse, it would be on a slight angle. So I'm coming to there and left clicking, and now I can bring my ellipse up and come, so I'm just covering the bottoms of the ears and the tail. I might not have gotten enough of the tail, we'll see. I'll go a little bit further because I can see that I haven't gone right down as far as the chin, so we want to come somewhere in between there and then move it so that I cover all the areas I want. So I'll go there, left click and enter, and I'm going to change to out of true view so I can see through to the image of my ellipse. Select my ellipse, and I'm just going to bring that down till it covers the ears and the tail, and across a little bit, down a bit. That's pretty good there. And let go. You see I'm not quite as wide as I could have been, but close enough, and I'm going up far enough. And don't worry that there isn't a part of a face here, we'll fix that later, because the pumpkin will cover part of it as well. Alright, now the eyes are underneath the paw, so we'll do those next. I'm not going to make holes for the eyes. I'm just going to stitch them on top of the black. It's not always a good idea to make holes because you've got to stitch the machine's got to stitch around the holes with lots of travels, and it creates a lot more stitching than you actually remove sometimes. And so we can create a circle of fill stitch and stitch it on top as a second layer, but we can turn the underlay off so we won't have it quite so thick, because with the stitching of the face will act as an underlay. So get our ellipse tool again, but this time we want a kind of orangey yellow, so let's pick the same colour as the orange in the pumpkin, and that way we won't have so many colour changes. Again, we want to find somewhere in the middle of the eye, left click, and these are actually circles close enough too, so just get it till you think it's a good enough circle, left click and enter, and we can actually use that same eye by selecting it and dragging it across to make an, sorry, I've used my left mouse click, so I'll undo. We need to right click and drag a copy across. So that will go there, close enough. And we need some little, we need to select both of those and turn the underlay off. I forgot to do that. So the bottom one selected, hold my shift key down and select the top one, and down here we've got an underlay set. We can just left click there to remove the underlay quickly. And Again, we're going to make little black dots for the eyes, but this time we'll use a satin fill because they're so small, and again we won't have any underlay. So an ellipse, but choose your satin fill, and this time we're going to go back to our black, and we're just going to make tiny little dots for the eyes, the pupils, sorry, and enter. Let's just have a look at that in TrueView. I think I made that second one a bit bigger, yes. So that's another reason for putting them across. I quite like the bigger one actually, so I'll select this one and, oh, I've still got my tool. Escape, get my select tool. I'll select this one and delete it. And I'll select this one and right click and drag it across. As I said, you don't have to be exactly the same as the image. You can take a bit of artistic license, so to speak. Alright, out of TrueView again so I can see the paw because that sits on top of everything. So this one we're going to digitize a closed object. Now I should do the claws first because they should be underneath, but I'm going to digitize the paw first and then I'll have to move it. So it's entirely up to you which way you do it, but well, let's do the claws first. Alright, so closed object, but I want a satin fill for the claws. And I'm just going to zoom in here and I'm going to create, so there are a couple of right clicks, a left click and so on, and you can see that I'm going just inside the paw and enter. Now I'll go into TrueView. You can see that the angle for that stitching is not very good, so we'll go to the reshape tool and we'll grab that angle and just make it go across the claw. We might need to put two angles in actually, so we'll go to edit and add stitch angles. I might put one across that way. Enter. That looks better. We've got a nice tiny little stitch down here, so it's going more into a point. Alright, now the claw on this side of the paw is a large one as well, so let's mirror, well no, let's select that, right click and drag a copy off, and we're going to use our mirror X, which is mirror horizontally, and turn it around the right way. I'm just going to go out of TrueView so I can see what I'm doing, and it's a little bit small, so I'll grab this corner handle and just make that bigger. Alright, and here we have to use a bit of artistic license to get these two claws, so we could select this one, right click, right click and select it, right click and drag. We can left click on it to get the rotation handles, turn that round a little bit and maybe make it a little bit smaller, or no, maybe just leave it. It's a bit bigger, but never mind. And I'm going to right click and drag a copy of that one over here and flip it horizontally as well. Actually, I will make them both a bit smaller. It's better. They're only tiny little objects. Right. And so now I can digitize the actual paw itself. Oh, let's just put these in a logical order first. So I'm going to select the first one. I'm going to hold my control key down, select this one, then that one, and come up to the top of your color film and click on sequence by selects, which will put them in a logical order going from the left to the right. Now I'll digitize the paw. Okay, so closed object, digitize, closed object, step fill, and make sure the underlay is turned on. I'm going to right click around here, now I'll check in a minute. I'm hoping I'm getting the top of those claws. I'll left click here because I'm changing direction. A bit hard to see whether I've got the top of those claws with the image there and so dark, so I'll check when I'm finished. Left click again, right click, right click, right click. Oh, and I'm back to the beginning. So I'll just hit enter and I'll dim the image. Okay, now I can see better. Did I get the claws covered? Yes. 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 Good enough. And definitely yes. Alright, now you can see that the paw covered quite a bit of the face and some of the eye. So while I've got that selected, or select it, I'm going to go to the edit toolbox and click on remove overlaps. That's chopped out that bit of the face and a little bit of the eye. I've got this bit here of the face curling up here. That's not strictly necessary either, so let's just select the face and get the reshape tool, and we can get rid of those nodes there. Might need to put a square node in first here so that when we get rid of the nodes it will go up to the, so if I left click on the outline I'll get a square node, that's adding a square node, and then if I remove these it'll have a straight line to go to. Being careful not to remove nodes I don't want to remove, so about there. That's selected all those blue ones. Another way of doing that, if you can't because you're accidentally selecting some of these and you want to keep them, another way to do it is, I'll just click off so none are selected, is to probably select this one, hold your shift key down and select the last one before the one you want to keep, and all the ones in between will be selected, and then you can delete those, and that just tidies up that. Oh, that was not necessary to have that piece in there. All right, let's have a look at that in true view. The whiskers. They're very simple. So we'll select, click off so nothing's selected, and we'll get our single outline. So we'll get our digitize, open object, single outline, black color. I'm just going to start inside the face. Click. That's a right click to get a bit of a curve on this whisker, and let's go a little bit wider just to make it more pronounced. Enter, and another one here, and I'm going to make it go over to there, and enter. Just a couple of whiskers, but they will make a difference. Now of course they'll need to be stitched under the face because I want to be able to travel to them in eliminating too many jump stitches. So I want to travel from the ear, for instance, down to the whisker, stitch the whisker out, back again, and the same with this one, out and back again. So we might just put everything in the right order now. Let's have a look at our cat. So I think it's pretty close actually. So I've got the tail, then this ear, that ear, the face, the eyes, the pupils, the claws and the paw. Can't get any better than that, except for the whiskers. So let's select the whiskers and let's move them up to after the ears. So we can go up, back one object at a time. past the eyes, past the face, and just before the face was the ears. So that's where I want them. Now, because I did that, the closest join is not applicable, but we want to put some paths in anyway. So I will do that as I path. But there's our little cat, all ready to go. Oh, we have a little nose, don't we? Let's just go out of true view. I can't remember whether I put a nose in mine or not. We can make a little orange nose and put it in after the eyes so that we don't have to change the thread too often. So I'm going to use my travel toolbar to get to the end of the eyes. I'm going to hide that. Oh no, I need the image. Okay, so I'll select the jump to start and end and go back to the beginning of the design. Now I want to go forward, colour by colour, sorry, that goes to the beginning of the design. Back to the beginning of the design, that goes to the end of the design, unless I choose whether I want colour or object. There's not too many objects, so I'll go object by object. So I'll click, and you can see that my white cross is jumping around here because what it's doing is going through the pumpkin, even though it's locked. So I'll just get through the pumpkin. It's jumping around all the stops for the pumpkin. You can see those little triangles because I've got my show connectors turned on. So you can see it jumping to the end of each object in the pumpkin. Now it's jumped to the end of the tail, and you see the tail's gone the right colour. There's my first ear, there's my second ear, there's my first whisker, second whisker, face, first eye, second eye. Now I want to digitize my nose. So we'll just go in here and get a closed object, the orange colour, and let's make it a satin fill for the nose because it's a tiny little object. Enter, and let's go to true view. We can see that that's not really a good angle, so we'll select it, go to the reshape tool, and let's bring our angle down to that direction. Now that is the same direction as the face, so I might just pull it around a little bit. It's hard to get, there we go, a good shape when you're doing such a tiny object. So I'm simplifying it a little bit. It's almost just a little button. Okay. So I'll worry about the angles and tidying this up in the next video. This one's getting a bit long now. So we've done the cat and the pumpkin. We've still got a bit of work on the pumpkin to get the order right and to get the shapes right. And I'll cover all that in the next video. And it'll be time to make the applique. And this is where I've got a few issues that I want to discuss with you, such as stitch density and the shape of the applique and how best to achieve that. Okay, thanks very much for being patient and watching, and I'll see you in the next video.